delivery on the demons. So we've discussed 3 demons to date. Remember the order? First demon? So Krishna was about 3 days old. And the second demon, Shaktasura, and Krishna was about 3 months old. And the third demon, who? Srinivata, and Krishna was 1 year old. So now Krishna is about 18 months old, just over a year. And he's performing his beautiful Dambanda Leela, where Mother Yashoda binds him to the mortar, grinding mortar. And during that description by Shukadeva Goswami, Shukadeva mentions how Narad became unhappy with Nala Kubera and Manigriva, and he cursed them. He became angry. So Parikshit Maharaj, at the beginning of this chapter 10, in the 10th canto, he requests Sukadeva to describe why did Narad become angry with Nala Kubera and Manigriva. Why was Narad prompted to curse these 2 sons of the great demigod, Kubera. Kubera is the treasurer of the demigods. So why would Narad curse these 2 personalities? So by being prompted by this question, then Shukadeva Goswami begins to describe this pastime of the deliverance of Nala Kubera and Manigriva. So, as I said, they were the 2 sons of Nala Kubera, the treasurer of the demigods, and they also had association with Shivji, because Kubera is very friendly with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is very friendly with Kubera, and he allowed these 2 sons to roam around in the beautiful Nandana gardens of the heavenly realm. These are the most beautiful gardens in Swaga, and they're under the protection of Lord Shivji. So these 2 sons, they were enjoying there in these gardens, beautiful gardens. They were enjoying with many women by the lakes and so on. And they were completely intoxicated. And it's described that due to excessive wealth, then they had so much material facility. And that material facility itself is an intoxication. But on top of that, they were also intoxicated with so many celestial beverages. So they were romping around with many damsels of the heavenly world. And they were naked beside a beautiful lake, flowers and trees and birds and so on. And Narad, for some mysterious reason, was just inspired to walk through that garden on this particular day. And when he was walking through, as soon as the Apsaras and the heavenly damsels saw him, they immediately ran to cover themselves up. They hid in the bushes, behind the foliage, etc. But these 2 sons, Nala Kubera and Manigriva, they were so intoxicated, they were just saying, why is this saintly person coming to a place like this? He has no business here. Why is he coming here? And they were just completely in a mood of arrogance, unbridled arrogance, because of their wealth. Because their father is the treasurer of the demigods. They had so much excessive wealth. So then Narad was very unhappy to see the condition of these 2 boys, these 2 young men. And he thought in his mind, how can I purify these sons of Kubera? He was very affectionate to Kubera and the demigods. He's affectionate to everyone now, but in particular when he sees someone of a higher position acting in such a debauching way, he wants to give his mercy. So he confronted these 2 sons and said, because of your arrogance and your disrespect to a saintly person, not even beginning to cover yourselves up when I'm coming through here, because you want to be naked, so you can be naked like trees. You can take birth as trees. And we can't imagine the power of these saintly persons, but almost immediately their legs started to lock up, and they started to feel some hardness coming into their bodies, and they suddenly realized, we are going to become trees. And at this point they were begging Narad deeply for some mercy, and Narad said, you will become trees, but you will take birth in the courtyard of Vrindavan as the twin Arjun trees, and you will be knocked over, broken down by Krishna himself, and therefore you will get liberation. But you will have to stay for 100 celestial years in the bodies of trees. So Nala, Kuvera, Manigriva were horrified at this prospect, but they very quickly became trees. And it's explained how Narad, he wanted to purify this arrogance of wealth. And he thought that the best cure for that disease of wealth is actually poverty. This is how Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains in the commentary. In a poverty-stricken condition, a man can't be proud because he can't enjoy his senses. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says in a poverty condition, you can't even get sufficient foodstuffs for your senses to actually act properly. So you're in a very restricted condition just physically. And you're automatically performing penance and austerity because you're in a poverty-stricken condition. So this was Narad's thoughts. This is what Shukadeva Goswami is relating to Parikshit, because he asked, why did Narad become angry? This is why he became angry. And then to cure this mood of this high false prestige, to take birth as trees, where they would have to completely, singularly depend on Krishna. In the bodies of trees, they only have one depend. They can't walk anywhere, they can't do anything, they can't do any activity. All a tree can do is grow to the sun and look for its nutrients and water, etc. That's the life of a tree. So in this condition, they would become very remorseful for their sinful activities, because they had totally transgressed etiquette by misbehaving in such a debauched way in front of such a sage as Narad. Narad is not an ordinary sage at all. So then they're residing remarkably in the courtyard of Vrindavan. These two huge trees, and they were kind of fused together at their roots. There was just a very small space between the two trees. And the binding of Krishna to the mortar had taken place in chapter 9, just prior to this description. And so Krishna has become bound because of his mother's love. There's no other way that Krishna can be bound except by praying. So Krishna has become bound by his mother's love in the form of this knot binding him to the grinding mortar. So then, when Mother Yashoda leaves Krishna, who has been weeping and weeping and weeping, then as soon as Mother Yashoda is out of sight, Krishna stops weeping straight away, because there's no one to weep for. And all his cowboy boyfriends, they come and joke around him. And then Krishna's laughing and joking. No, it's no problem. But they can't untie this knot. Nobody can. The Sakhas, they try to untie this knot. Even Baladev comes and tries to untie the knot. But they are not in Vatsalya Bhav. This knot was tied with Vatsalya Bhav by Mother Yashoda. So there's no way that anyone except someone who's in that Bhav can untie this knot. So Krishna has to resign himself to be tied by this. But the cowherd Sakhas are always thinking very playfully, how can we play some game? And Krishna also has lots of ideas to play some game. So they all pushed this grinding mortar over on its side, and then Krishna, even though he could walk, because we see that beautiful painting of Mother Yashoda binding Krishna, and Krishna in that painting, he's about 18 months old. He was walking at about 7-8 months. So he's able to walk, but he can't walk and pull the grinding mortar. So he's crawling with the grinding mortar. So then they push, all the boys also, because it's a heavy grinding mortar, they push this grinding mortar out into the courtyard. And now Krishna, he remembers the affection of his devotee Narad. And he remembers the curse that Narad gave to these two sons of Kubera. He's not really so interested in these two sons. It's described by Srila Vishnu Thakur. They're just young boys of the heavenly planets. But he's interested in fulfilling the curse of Narad. He's interested in fulfilling that obligation of his. So then the cowherd boys, they're pushing this grinding mortar. And then it's described by our acharyas and Gurudev in particular so many times. Gurudev would speak this pastime every single kartik for so many years. As many kartiks as Gurudev performed, he would speak this pastime. And every time we sat down to hear it, I can remember hearing almost 20 times this pastime. And Gurudev would never repeat himself. It always seemed to be ever fresh. And this is a phenomenon about all of these pastimes. They are completely fresh. In the next chapter, actually, Shukadeva is going to praise Parikshit for his enthusiasm to hear these pastimes. Even though he's heard them before, but still, the devotees love to hear these pastimes of the greatness and sweetness and beauty and wonderment of Krishna. So this grinding mortar is pushed over, and all the cowherd boys are pushing it. And then Krishna directs it between these two trees. So there's just a small space. And Krishna very easily crawls through that space. But then the grinding mortar, it gets stuck between the two trees. Now, appreciate that Krishna himself is not even touching the trees. Not even the rope that's binding his waist is touching the trees. The rope is tied to the grinding mortar. It's only the grinding mortar itself that is touching the trees. And then Krishna just gives a little jerk of that rope. And immediately these massive, huge trees, they crash to the ground. It's described that the Brijvasis thought that thunderbolts had fallen from the higher worlds when they heard this crashing, loud noise. Their hearts practically stopped beating because they immediately thought of Krishna's vulnerability, that he needed to be protected by them. This was their immediate thought. And of course, Mother Yashoda, when this crashing sound happens, we cannot imagine her devastation. Because what had happened previously, that she had tried to bind Krishna with so much energy and so much effort, it took her to actually bind him using all the ropes practically in the village, and looking like the laughing stock of all the elder gopis. And she's performed this very intense pastime of actually binding her son. Mother Yashoda's heart is like butter. It's as soft as, and here she had to chastise her son. So she was perplexed at just even having to chastise him. But when these trees crashed down, her heart literally stopped beating because of the thought that these trees would have crashed onto her Lala, onto her baby Krishna. So Mother Yashoda is totally frozen, basically. And Nanda Baba and the elder cowherd boys, cowherd men, they immediately come to that scene and they see these huge trees which didn't look particularly old, like they were getting ready to fall over. There was no hurricane came through to push them over. They could not understand how possible was it for these trees to be crashed to the ground. Now when these trees crashed to the ground, in front of all the little cowherd boys, these two amazing, effulgent personalities, Nalagriva and Nalagriva and Manigriva, emerged from these trees in all of their fine demigod paraphernalia, their clothing, etc. Brilliant, shining like the sun. And these two effulgent beings began to offer wonderful prayers to baby Krishna. And the first, of course, these prayers, it's very dynamic, this particular conversation, because it's all Aishwarya. And Krishna's not in an Aishwarya mood. He's completely in a Madhurya mood. The Madhurya, like I said the other day, is when Krishna doesn't know that he's God. He's Sarvagya and Mugdata. He knows everything, but he simultaneously doesn't know. So he's hearing these Aishwarya prayers from these two boys. And he's not particularly moved by them. And these two young men, they're saying, how amazing it is that you're able to crash down these two trees, but you can't untie yourself. You can't untie this knot. This is amazing. We can't understand. Immediately they can't understand this Madhurya and Aishwarya overlap. It's just like Queen Kunti in the 8th chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. She's saying beautiful prayers to Krishna, and she's describing this particular pastime. And she's saying, I cannot understand how you were so afraid of Mother Yashoda with that stick in her hand. I cannot understand that, because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you get this like crossover happening between the Aishwarya and Madhurya. And these are the prayers that the Nalakuvera and Manigriva are offering. So they're glorifying Krishna very beautifully, but Krishna's not so religious. He's kind of waiting to get back to play with his cowboy boyfriends. And he wasn't really, as I said before, interested specifically in giving so much kripa to these two boys. He was giving kripa to Narad by fulfilling the curse that he made. So they describe prayers in 7 or 8 verses here are described beautiful prayers by the sons of Kubera. But again, Krishna is not particularly interested. And then they circumambulate Krishna, and then they go back to their position in Swargaloka after fulfilling that curse of Narad, greatly chastened. And actually it's described in their prayer, they pray to always remember the sweet pastimes of Krishna. Now these two boys, they take birth in Braj after this pastime as Snigdakanta and Madhukanta. These two boys, they take birth as narrators of Krishna's pastimes. Throughout the book Gopal Champu, it's all about these same pastimes being narrated by these two boys, Snigdakanta and Madhukanta. They're relating all these beautiful pastimes of Krishna in Gopal Champu. So that's the benediction that has been bestowed on them by Krishna for their glorification, and they're just being liberated from those tree bodies in Braj. So this is basically the pastime. And again in Gopal Champu it's saying that how amazing it was that Krishna could break down these two strong trees, but he couldn't untie the knot of affection by his hand. And then we know the pastime that eventually Nanda comes as soon as they heard that those trees crashing to the ground. And then they begin to inquire from the cowherd boys, the small boys, well, what happened? How did these trees suddenly crash over? And then the boys in their broken language, they start to describe, well, Krishna just got the mortar stuck between the two trees and just gave a little pull and fell over. And Nanda Baba couldn't believe this. They were bewildered. They were very much bewildered by this. They didn't know how that could happen. But they were amazed that no one had been scratched or hurt. Not even an ant was hurt by these crashing trees down. Nobody was disturbed at all, except the hearts of the Brajvasis. They were intensely disturbed by this possible accident of Krishna. And again, Nanda Baba is praising the mercy of Narayan for protecting his son, his beautiful son. So we're seeing here, just as Gurudev was explaining in this lecture just now, these differences between the Aishwarya realm and the Madhurya realm. Gurudev gave his life to explain these distinctions between these realms. So in this particular pastime, this distinction comes out very prominently. We see these prayers of Aishwarya being offered in Braj. So this is very helpful for us to appreciate the absolute sweetness and supremacy of Brajendra Nandan Shri Krishna over Narayan. Any question?
Is it alright to ask a question now?
You can ask briefly.
This pastime, how does it fit into the series of killing of demons? Just because of the kind of demonic behavior of these demigods?
Yes, they had demonic behavior and they were in Braj. So it's classified by Bhakti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami that in the category of Krishna purifying Braj of demonic elements. So this demonic element is principally, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, it says it represents pride and arrogance coming from feeling that one has a high birth and wealth. This gives rise to cruelty to animals, lust for women, and indulgence in intoxication. It further gives rise to debauchery of tongue, uncontrolled eating habits, and loose talking. Then come general hard-heartedness, shamelessness, and all sorts of disgraceful acts. This is what comes from excessive wealth. You start to have the impression that you are the Lord of all. And we see today in these small demons that we have on the planet today, they have some material wealth. And the arrogance that comes with that wealth, we see, in their activities. They just do anything. They take all the fish from the ocean, etc., take the oil from the earth, etc. They do all these really heavy demoniac things. So all of these demoniac qualities carries two sons who are purified. So as we're going through, we're understanding, like Putana is purifying the false guru conception. Shakasura carrying these old unwanted bad habits. And then Trinavrata, this fault of speculation. And now these two, this disease of arrogance that is caused by excessive wealth. So Krishna is purifying the ground of Braj and also the ground in our hearts as we enter into Vrindavan through these Balya Lila pastimes of Krishna. We're entering Vrindavan to come to the Rasa Lila, to appreciate the Bhakti or the devotion that the gopis have for Krishna. This is what Srila Gurudev has given us. He's given us this understanding, this appreciation. This is the heart of, this is the Satyam Paramadimahi. This is the goal of the entirety of the Bhagavatam, is to understand what is this height of Bhakti. What is the Bhakti of the gopis of Vrindavan? This is the place we're following. So we're coming in through a very beautiful entranceway of these very sweet, childlike pastimes of Krishna in his Kumara Balya Leela. So now, after this pastime has happened, the elder Gopas and Nanda Baba in particular, they meet. And Krishna, he inspires in their hearts that actually we should leave Gokul. Gokul and Raval. Raval is the birthplace of Sri Radha. That's about 8 kilometers from Gokul. Just like Nandagaon is 8 kilometers from Varshana. It's very close by. So King or Raj Vishabhanu Maharaj would live in Raval and Nanda Baba would live in Gokul. They were the greatest of friends and they were very much interrelated with all their family members and so on. So they had a meeting together and Krishna inspired this in their heart that now they should actually seriously think to leave Mahavan. They didn't want to leave. Nanda Baba didn't want to leave Mahavan. Nanda Baba came originally with Parjanya, the father of Nanda Baba. Parjanya had 5 sons, as we described, and Parjanya used to live in Nandagaon. This was the family seat of Parjanya. And because of the Keshi demon, it's described, was present around, Parjanya became fearful and came to Mahavan to escape this demon. But with the advent of Krishna, with the birth of Krishna, all these demons seem to gravitate to Gokul. So they had a meeting and they decided, yes, we will leave Gokul. And Nanda Baba said, well, actually, I don't really want to, but because you all want to, I will follow your advice and I will, we will arrange to all leave. So they collected all of their carts. They had enormous carts. Like practically you'd see, in English we call it a caravan, I think in America we call it a trailer. So they had these big carts with maybe 8 or 10 bullocks pulling each cart. And they were like houses, and they had beautiful flags on them, and festoons and bells. They looked incredibly colourful and beautiful. Nanda Baba has 900,000 cows, and Vrishabhanu Maharaj has 1,100,000 cows, more than Nanda Baba. So they had all these cows that they were planning to go across the Jamuna River and into the splendid forest of Vrindavan. Now, just for a moment, I want to quickly, if you could just bring that right here, I want to quickly draw a map of Braj so you can see the geography of where they're about to go. It's helpful to know the geography, because then the pastimes become more.
Really get the details.
Go to the window. You
I can hold it. Okay, you can all see? So, Jamuna Devi. You need to see. Jamuna Devi. So here is the forest of Mahavan, and here is Lohavan, and here is Bandirvan, Badravan, and Bailvan. So that's Mahavan, this is Bandirvan, this is Badriyavan, this is Lohavan, and this is Bailvan. So to remember this easily, you've got 3 Bs, right? I mean, I have to use tricks to remember these things. So you've got these 5 forests are on the eastern side. You know when you're standing in Gopinath Bhavan, you see Suryadev rising across the Jamuna. So that's in the east. So this is the eastern side of Jamuna. So now on the western side, the forest, this is Mahavan. Now, the forest of Vrindavan, as I said yesterday, comes up like this. This is all Vrindavan. And here is the beautiful Govardhan Hill. And here is Nandagaon. And here is Varshana. And you have over here the first forest is Madhuvan. Right next to it you have Talvan. Next to that you have Bahulavan. And just here you have Kadirvan. So you have 4 forests there. Vrindavan is 5. And then you have Kamyavan, which is Mother Yashoda's birthplace, is right over here. And then you have Kamudvan is down here. Kamudvan. These are the 7 forests, principal. There are Upavans, like Kokilavan, which is a smaller forest, but these are the 12 principal forests of Braj. It really helps in this next sequence, because now Krishna, he's getting a little bigger, and his father has been taking him out with the cows, much to the horror of Mother Yashoda. She complains bitterly, don't take our Lala with the cows, otherwise he'll want to go out in the fields and tend to them. But Krishna and Balaram, they so much want to go out cow grazing. They're very restless young boys. So now this journey is about to begin from here, from Mahavan, from Gokul, and all these hundreds and thousands and millions, actually, of carts are being pulled by all these bullocks. That is described as if Mother Ganga has come in to merge in the waters of the Jamuna. Kavi Kanapur, in the Ananda Vrindavan Champu, he describes this colorful picture of all the residents leaving Gokul so beautifully. It would be wonderful one day if some artist could do a painting of this, because Krishna and Balaram are sitting in the laps of Mother Yashoda, on this one huge cart like a house, and they're all singing songs. Their songs are vibrant throughout the whole journey. Flutes are going, harps are going, so many musical instruments, mridangas are going, and so on. All this music is happening. It's a very festive atmosphere. Krishna is so happy with this. He loves this kind of joyful procession. So all the cows are in front, these beautiful white cows, these Surabhi cows. Surabhi cows originally come from the planet of Gokul, of Krishna's own planet. So all these cows are being in front, and the carts and so on are all behind. They made all this arrangement, the Brijvasis, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes, in 24 hours. They all packed up where they'd been living for the last 8 or 9 years within 24 hours. They are so detached. There's a whole mood of detachment in the Brijvasis' lifestyle, because they are by nature travelers. They move around because they have so many cows. They have to feed the cows, they have to find new pastures, etc. So very quickly they left their homes and so on behind. And now when we go to Gokul, we can see those original pillars. I mean, Nanda Baba lived in a real palace, a beautiful palace, because there's a pastime where Krishna sees himself in a reflection of one of the columns, in the jeweled columns, etc. That's another pastime. So they came by evening time, they reached the banks of Jamuna. And then they all settled down, and it was as if a huge city had just come to Jamuna with all these carts, and they made a circle, and they make like a half circle. And the cows are here, and all the residents of Brijvasis are here, and then the cows are like in the center. And then it's described that 3 hours before sunrise, all the gopis and the gopas, they get up and they start milking the cows and singing and churning the butter. They just do their normal activities, even though the cows have to be milked. You can't stop milking the cows just because you're traveling. So all the cows have to be milked, and then all the milk has to be boiled, etc., to churning the yogurt and so on. So all this is going on here, on the other side. And then it's described how many boats. First of all, the cows, they swim across the Jamuna. In those days, of course, Jamuna now has something like 15 or 16 dams coming from Jamunotri, blocking it. So the actual flow is very, very small. But in those days, of course, there was no dams, and Jamuna Devi would become unbroken in her huge bodily form. But the cows, very strongly, they swam across there. All these hundreds of thousands of cows, they swim across. And then it's described that many boats come. And the boats, they carry all the residents across, and then they float these carts across. They empty a lot of the contents, and then they float these carts across. And then they all gather here in what we call today the town of Vrindavan. That township of Vrindavan wasn't present really before the Goswamis began to excavate the different deities, or found the different deities, and establish those temples, Madan Mohan, Govinda, etc., Radha Damodar. All these temples were established after Mahaprabhu. Practically, when the Goswamis first went to Vrindavan, it was just like an empty forest, full of mosquitoes and all kinds of uncomfortable things. You know, when Lokanath Goswami and Burgava, they were the first two to actually go into Braj, and it was very tough. It was very, austere for them. So at this time, when Krishna crosses out, it's just a beautiful forest. And Krishna, he's so attracted to the beauty of Braj. From this chapter 10 is when the descriptions of Braj become unfolded. And Krishna's sitting on the lap of his mother, and he says, "Oh mother, who is that funny old man over there? He's got long like dreadlocks that are going into the ground, that are looking like roots." And Mother Yashoda said, "Oh, that is a banyan tree. That is the banyan tree, and these are all his leaves and so on." And Krishna's pointing out all these different trees and the animals in the forest and so on. Krishna and Balaram are asking all these beautiful questions, and Mother Yashoda is supplying all these wonderful, amazing, and everyone is laughing and joking at the sweetness of Krishna's questions. So this is Krishna's mood, it's all sweet. So Krishna now, he's about 2.5, 3 years old.
And then they cross over, and then they start to walk up here. This is the Delhi-Agra highway. There. You come here, it's Chatikara. Chatikara. What does Chatikara mean? The town's name today is Chatikara. Chati means wagon. Kara means circle. A circle of wagons. It comes from that time. So each place they would come to, they would spend about 3 or 4 or 5 months because they had to graze all the cows and so on. They weren't in a hurry. And they were relishing the mood of traveling like this. And they're very accomplished in doing all of their needed duties at the same time as move along. So after about 6 or 7 months, then they start to travel up to Govardhan. On the way, there's one town called Rao. And then after this, there's a little village called Bashanti. Bashanti means spring, season. And by the time they reached here, Krishna had managed to convince his mother, in particular, that he should be allowed to go and graze the calves. When Krishna was going with his father and the elder cowherd men to the cowherd pasturing grounds, Mother Yashoda, as I said, was very disturbed and unhappy. She didn't like the idea of Krishna going out into Braj like that. She wanted to keep him close. And of course Krishna and Balaram, they only wanted to do that. And they were begging and requesting Nanda Baba and the elder Gopas, please let us take the calves out. And then, it's so beautiful to describe, all these elder men, they all had a big meeting. Now, shall we let Krishna and Balaram take the calves out? And it lasted for days. They were having pros and cons, etc. You know, shall we let them? And then finally it was decided, Krishna inspired them to make a positive answer for him. Because he was really pulling sulky tantrums, you know, not being able to go out in the forest with the calves. And then they finally decided, yes, he can go. Then they found a very auspicious day for him to go out, start his cowherd grazing pastimes. And on that very auspicious, Krishna's about 4.5, almost 5 now. He can almost dress himself. He has so many like servants who want to dress him. But this time, he's kind of like insisting that he do it himself a bit. He's growing up a little bit. His feet are still quite small, but still he's growing up a little bit. But then, when they reach this place of Bashant, then this is when he takes the calves out. And the first day that he takes the calves out, he has to stop at every single person's home, and they're all offering arti to him. Because it's a great big occasion. Krishna's about to leave the village for about 7 or 8 or 4 or 5, 6 hours. And he's about to go away into that forest where we don't know what's going to happen to him. So all the Brijvasis are holding their breath. Will actually Krishna be okay? This little boy, they're still seeing him, of course, as their very little boy. So then he takes the arti, and even is described the devas, Indra, Chandra, Vayu, etc. They come and they offer arti too. They realize what an important day this is. Krishna is about to begin his cow or his calf herding pastimes. So then finally he gets to the edge of the village, you know, almost 12 o'clock or something, when he's got all those different artis, and he gets out into the fields and he starts to take the cows. And meanwhile, Mother Yashoda, she doesn't want to let him go. She just keeps running to him and checking his body that he's got everything. Then she runs again to him, puts mantras all over his body for protection. And then she comes again, and then she's telling all the cowherd boys, you have to protect Krishna. There's one cowherd boy called Vijay. He fights with the demigods. All of the cowherd boys are able to defeat any number of demigods. So there's some of the cowherd boys are very like Kshatriya type spirited. And they have their little bows with them. And it's described they're all carrying their little puppets with them. And all their various toys and balls with them on their way to the forest. And then, of course, they all have a little bit of lunch with them. Not much, because the lunch is going to be brought later. But finally, they manage to escape the loving hold of their parents, and they wander into the forest. And Nanda Baba and Mother Yashoda, they're just left spellbound, like silent figures in a landscape. They can't even move practically, seeing that their sons have gone. Gurudev describes actually Mother Yashoda, she sends her life heirs amongst the cows, so that she won't actually, or the calves, so that actually she won't be separated from Krishna. And then when they finally come into the forest, they start grazing. And then of course, young boys, they just want to play away from their elders, from their family members. So then they start playing the most beautiful games and so on. And so this is the travel road. You can remember now. Gurudev was, I'm repeating exactly the way Gurudev described this travel plan. He came in. You have questions?
Yeah, because you said they left
Mahavan, Gokul,
when he was about 2.5, 3 years old.
Yes, and then they spent months in different places.
Then they stopped in Chatika, Rao, and then in Vassana.
Yeah. Takes about 18 months to get there.
18, because
Yes.
you said 6 months. The total was 18 months. the whole
Something
journey.
approximately there. But
Okay.
Krishna is he's less than 5 years old when he first is allowed to take the calves out.
Okay.
He's still in Balya Lila. And the next demon, Bakasura, he's still in Balya. He doesn't come into Hoganda until just after Agasura. Agasura, he's on the cusp. Because the Brahma Vimohan Lila is when he actually gets engaged to all the... Because then he's 6 years old and eligible for engagement. So prior to that, he's not eligible. So that's the age sequence. So this is how we can remember the pastimes unfolding like this.
Didn't the Kaliya pastime take place
Ah,
before that?
no. Kaliya is after that. No. These are only childhood. Bakasura, Agasura, Brahma Vimohan, and then after that, I think after that is Kaliya.
Because then, if they're going away from the...
No, they all come back. This is why I've drawn the. Thank you. This is why I've drawn this. This is all the forest of Braj. Jamuna Devi, in Krishna's time, was actually closer to Govardhan. So what we see today, Kaliya Kriga, that actual spot, the whole of Braj was more compressed, in fact. It's very hard to define exactly because as Krishna would walk, it could expand or contract according to his desire. But this is just like a material picture or a mind map. So when you've got something of the geography, you know that these 5 forests exist over here, these 7 here, and this is the order. Because when we do parikrama, we come to Madhuvan first, then we go to Talvan, then we pay obeisances to Kadirvan from Talvan, because we don't actually go to Kadirvan, and then we come to Bahulavan, and then we come back to Vrindavan.
Kamudvan? Don't we do the pranam to Kamudvan?
Kamudvan is here, this is Kadirvan.
Kamudvan is that not across Talvan?
Is what?
The other side of Talvan. Kamudvan.
Oh, so yeah, you're right. Actually, this is Kamudvan, and this is Kadirvan.
I was thinking.
This is Kadirvan.
Yeah, that is better.
Sorry, I got the 2 Ks. Kamudvan.
Yeah.
What could we do without the devotees? Interact.
And I have one more thing. Didn't Krishna kill a fire demon in Badirvan?
Bandirvan, yes. All of this they were traveling to, even though they were stationed then, eventually in Nandagam.
Yeah.
They would bring the cows right down here.
Go to Yamuna again.
Yes, because Jamuna was actually higher. They could bring the cows right down and even take them back.
So if Jamuna was higher, then Chatika was also higher, or was it still there?
I don't know how you work it out. But when you read the books of Jiva Goswami and the Vrindavan Champa, they're all saying that Jamuna Devi actually flowed closer. But also remember that Govardhan was much, much bigger. Govardhan was about 2 miles high
Very wide.
at that time, and everything about it is described that the shadow of Govardhan, Mathura is over here, and the shadow here, this is Mathura. Approximately. Maybe it's a little closer. This is a very rough map. But you get something of the idea.
So sometimes Krishna would cross the Yamuna with all the cows.
Yes,
For
yes,
cow grave.
yes. And this is when Jamuna was closer. I don't really know the answer to that because it was like 5,000 years ago. And really, Jamuna does change radically. But the Acharyas have written that Jamuna Devi was much more in proximity.
Govardhan was bigger, wider, so
Yes.
it was closer to Yamuna.
Yes, it would have been. And Jamuna would have been further up.
The shadow of Govardhan reached Mathura.
The shadow of Govardhan where the sun was setting would cover Mathura. That's how big. That's an indication of the size of Govardhan. But just to continue the journey before we go into the rest of the pastime, after Vasant, then Nanda Baba and Vrishabhanu Maharaj, they circle around here, and then Vrishabhanu Maharaj goes off here to Varsana, and Nanda Baba goes off here to Nandagaon. So that's the route that they travel. So from here in Varsant, of course, just before Krishna went out, his mother and father, they gave him these beautiful leather, soft leather shoes to actually wear, leather from a dead cow. And immediately Krishna rejected, so it's described, Balaram, he also had to reject. But it's described that Mother Earth, she sometimes puts her tongue out so that Krishna will walk very softly on her tongue. Mother Earth is so much in ecstasy that Krishna is walking on her planet. Because how many unlimited billions of planets are there in the Brahman? There are unlimited billions. So Krishna just was on this particular planet. And so Mother Earth is so pleased with Krishna being there. And it's described specifically in the different pastimes that as Krishna's feet grow bigger and bigger, Mother Earth becomes more and more joyous because she's getting more and more mercy from the size of his feet. When he's very small, it's only a little bit, but they get bigger and bigger. And Mother Earth is so satisfied with that. So that's just a rough picture. Yeah.
I've always had the impression that, all of the Vrindavasis, Nanda Maharaj was living in Nandagaon when Krishna first took off the cap, because they have that festival there.
It's described in Gopal Champu and another Vrindavan Champu. I said a little village is called Vashan. And many, many years ago, ISKCON traveled through there. And it was described clearly then also that this was the first place that actually Krishna took. When Krishna takes the cows out, that's another whole story. That's another whole... Huh?
Like two Gopashtamis.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that's a big upgrade. You see, the whole
Can you use the mic?
The whole purpose of this seminar about the demons is just to describe the Vrijabhasi pastimes. This is really what it's, this is what the demons are bringing out. All these different aspects of Braj. Because this is the Satyam Paramadima, when we're hearing about Krishna directly and his pastimes. This is the goal of life. There isn't anything more than this. Of course, when we hear about the pastimes of the gopis of Braj, that's more of it. But this is like the portal into that world of devotion of the gopis. So, actually, now, so Krishna's taking I didn't try to finish that story. So Krishna's taking, he reached the forest, they're all playing happily. And on the first day, so many ladies, servants come from Mother Yashoda, carrying thousands of pots of preparations for their lunch. And they sit them down, all in lines, like they're little boys, and start to serve them all this beautiful prasadam. And then, at the end of all this...
That time Radhika was cooking already.
I didn't see mention of that. I don't know.
Nandagaon.
That's not brought out until he comes to Poganda. Of course, he's playing at this time. Rajanath's asking about Sri Radha. It's described that the gopis and gopas, the little boys and the girls, they would play in the dust together. And then one time when they became about close to 6 years of age, they suddenly looked at each other and realized how beautiful each other was. And then the girls, they all became a little shy. Prior to that, they had no shyness. They would just play in the dust with Krishna.
But they did
That was later. The stealing of the cow?
they worship Katyayani.
Yeah, the stealing of those. That's later. That's in a later chapter. The little girls are small then.
But they are only 3 years old.
Yes, but Krishna's not. No, Krishna's in Bhaganda age at that age. Otherwise he wouldn't dream of it. In Balya Lila, it wouldn't make any effect if Krishna performed stealing. They didn't have any differentiation between just their childlike bodies and relationships. But Ananda and Kavi Kanpur describes that one day they're playing in the dust, and then all of a sudden this Purvarag actually comes in the gopis' heart simultaneously to Krishna, and they're seeing how attractive each other is, and then this shyness actually starts to hide, because they don't know what to do with these bars that are coming, so they have to try and hide them behind this veneer of shyness. That's why they're shy, because they're trying to contain these moods, but that doesn't happen till later. At this point, they're still like less than 5, well, about 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. It's not described exactly, and even if it was, it would be confusing for us, because the ages then are actually quite different. Gurudev describes that when Krishna is 5 or 6, to us he would appear like 8 or 9. Of course, their physical form was so much larger in that time. Krishna was about 16, 17 feet. Baladev was about 18 feet later on. I mean, the whole size was totally different 5,000 years ago. Coming down from Satyuga, everything was. So, and the ages also. So it would become more confusing if we try to really, set it in concrete. They say approximately between 4 and 5 years old when this. Okay. I got to get past the surah in before the bell goes.
Actually, Rupa Goswami, he describes this point about the age factor for great personalities. Like in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in Prabhupada's Nectar Devotion, he also mentioned this. That Rupa Goswami is saying that for great personalities, not ordinary people, but great personalities, you can multiply their age, numerical age, like if they're 5 years old, and you can add another half of that onto it. So like 7.5, 8 years old, like that.
Because
they mature much quicker.
Krishna's described by some commentators as being like 16 years or 10 or 11 years old when he goes to Mathura.
Right.
But then he performs the Rasa Lila when he's 7 or 8 years old. It's like, it's not an easy thing to fix like that. You all know what Padma said clearly? So these ages are somewhat flexible.
These ages, they look like older.
Yeah. Krishna is eternally, I have it written down, I'll tell you tomorrow. There's an eternal age of Krishna, I think it's 15 and so many months. And Radharani is 14 and so many months. Actual eternal age. Huh? Yes, in Astakali. By the way, I have to mention one thing, this is very important, is that all these demons that are coming are all Naimitika. They're all just happening in this Bhoma Vrindavan, in this earthly Vrindavan. These demons don't actually enter into transcendental Vrindavan. How is that possible? They have conceptions that these demons are coming and have come, but there's no reality to it. It's only in this Lila, in this Bhoma Lila, this earthly Vrindavan Lila, that these demons actually come into Vrindavan. So, Krishna, and then when that lunch is finished, then one gopi, she brings a beautiful golden box, there's a beautiful betel leaf for Krishna to chew and so on. They give him all these opulences. And then these ladies, they start to chide the children and tell them, you should quickly come back. Don't stay long in the forest like this. So the boys, they have to just play very briefly, and then again they come back into the village of Braj in the evening time. But this is that pastime itself, that go-blue, when they come back in the evening, is something extraordinary that the acharyas have described very beautifully. But before we go there, this demon, Vatsasura, came almost, not the first day, but about the third or fourth day that Krishna took his calves out. And Kamsa was asking all his demons, what is Krishna most attached to? And the demons told, well, he's attached to his calves. He seems to love his calves and cows. So this demon took the form of a cow. Vatsa. Vatsa means cow. Vatsasura. And he took the form of a calf, rather. But he had sort of a smell about him. So all the other calves, they weren't really attracted to him, so he stood out a little bit. So Krishna spotted him straight away. Baladev didn't see him straight away, but Krishna pointed to Baladev and said, oh, this is a demon. So this Vatsasura was trying to intermingle with all the other calves. And then Krishna very slyly just sort of walked up beside it and grabbed it by its hind legs and then swung it around till it lost its body, lost its life, and then threw the body up into a kapita tree. And that's actually the story about Vatsasura. And then left his body like that. And then all the demigods, seeing this wonderful act of Krishna so nonchalantly killing this huge demon. Actually, this demon was huge because when he died, just like Putana or Trinavrata or Shakatasura, they reveal like a huge form of a demon. And then all the little boys, they were so joyous that Krishna had performed this heroic act. The Sakya Bhag really inspires this called Vira Ras, this chivalrous mood. And the young boys were really proud of Krishna, and they were laughing and they were thinking that Krishna is even stronger than Vijay. But then Sridhar was saying, no, I could have done this anyway. Because all the coward boys can do the same as what Krishna did. But Krishna is the hero. Krishna is the center. Krishna could see it was a demon to begin with. The others didn't see it quite straight away. So Krishna takes that mantle of hero himself. And then Krishna cautions all the cowherd boys, don't tell anyone in Braj about this demon. If you tell Mahi, she won't let us come again tomorrow. He's not afraid of anything, but he's afraid of his mother. There's many pastimes where he's actually intimidated by Mother Yashoda. And Baladev also. She keeps them on a short leash. Just outside, because they were in Vashant, so it's in a forest very close to Vashant. It's in Vrindavan forest, but it's about 4 or 5 miles from Vashant. But even when I say 4 or 5 miles, that can have an expansion and contraction because...
Throw him back to front.
Huh?
You didn't throw him back from...
No, he threw him on a kapita tree, it's called. And kapita tree, and then he just revealed his form and then crashed over. So that's...
So his parents
And this chapter also describes the playful acts of the boys.
But the devotees didn't see that demons.
No, they didn't see that demon's body. They kept it secret until the next demon, which is after about another 5 or 6 days, which is Bakasura, and that's described as Bakastala, in a specific place in Braj that is there. Yeah.
You said there are no demons in the spirit world.
No.
What about Keshi and Kaliya?
Keshi and who?
Keshi, demon, and Kaliya, because it's written in Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
He sometimes comes back, but that's in another day of Lord Brahma, when he acts as the chariot for Krishna to come between Mathura and Vrindavan. You're describing that? Or sometimes Krishna rides the Keshi demon. Right? This is in another day of Lord Brahma. Yes, Boma Vrindavan is certainly not in Goloka Vrindavan, Aprakata. It's not in Transcendental Vrindavan. There cannot be those demons in Aprakata. Even it's astonishing how these demons manage to make their way into Braj. That is also described by Shukadeva Goswami as being astonishing, that how can they come in? It's only by Yogamaya's arrangement that they come in. So much in Goloka Vrindavan is of conception. It's like the gopis don't have husbands, but they have a conception of being married. It's not that they actually have husbands, but they have to enact that parakiya bhav. They have conceptions of being married. Similarly, these conceptions of these demons are there, but they're not the reality of it. So it's Naimitika Dharma. Naimitika means temporary.
And there are many, those who are Sadhaksida, who are going to the transcendental world. They have some faint memory of the Boma Vrindavan. But there is some being given in the homes.
Can you repeat? Because
He's saying that the sadhak siddha, when he becomes liberated, because he has some memory of these pastimes in Braj, faint impression.
Like a dream.
Yeah. Gurudev said like this. And then when they reach Goloka Vrindavan, they still have that impression there. So that fuels the idea that Krishna is the hero. 4 types of hero. Dhirodata, Dhirodata, Dhirashanta, and Dhiralalita. These 4 types of hero. So Krishna has to accentuate. He is the center of Braj. I mean, what a life. Killing these demons is so beautiful because he tells them, first of all, as I just said, not to tell anybody because he's afraid of money. But when Bakasura is killed, then he says, then you can tell.
What is the, what does he represent?
So Vatsasura represents a childish mentality, mischievous and too easily influenced by bad association. It gives rise to a type of greediness for sense gratification through which one becomes absorbed in materialism. Actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has written a whole lecture on this idea of this demon, Vatsasura, what he represents like that. And it's all about how in puritanical society they try to educate the children and they sort of say it's okay if you have some sex life before married life, but actually they really want them to control their sex desires so that they can enjoy it even more when they're married. It's really demonic. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he opens all that out and explains it. And he says actually the real teaching should be to go to Gurukul and should learn to restrict the senses. So this demon Vatsasura represents a childish naughtiness or mischievous behavior. Very, almost sinister actually. In his last birth in Garga Samhita, he's described as being Pramila, the son of Mura demon. He conquered demigods in battle. This is how big Vatsasura was. And then he entered Vasishtha Muni's ashram and saw the cow Nandini, that Kamandenu cow, just being able to give anything in Vasishtha Muni's ashram. And he wanted that cow. And the cow could see that actually this is a demon and told Vasishtha Rishi, oh, this is a demon. And then Vasishtha Muni told him to go away. Then this Pramila came back disguised as a Brahmana and begged that cow in charity. And again Nandini said, no, this is not a Brahmana. This is actually that demon Pramila. So then Vasishtha Rishi became very angry and he cursed him. He said, you are a demon in disguise. For this offense, you will have to appear as a calf because you're disguising yourself now as like a, someone who wants a cow. So Pramila then surrendered to Vasishtha Rishi and begged mercy. And Vasishtha said he would be liberated by Krishna. This is an enormous benediction. We take for granted because we're sitting in this sangha, we hear so much Braj pastime, we hear so much about Radha and Krishna, and we just take for granted that yes, this is ordinary. It's not ordinary. Most people don't even really appreciate this Madhurya Ras at all. They are only fixed in this ashram. Just even like etc. we talk about these Nalo, Kubera and Manigriva. Hardly anyone can actually appreciate this sweetness of Krishna. But by hearing these sweet childhood pastimes, it takes us right directly into that world of Vrindavan. So, Shri Gurudev ki jai, Baldev Krishna ki jai, Namaste Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.